Hello and welcome to the Heart of the Piano YouTube channel. I'm Bob Rose. Welcome to this tutorial on a new adventure by Choi. It's from the new Trinity Grade 8. It's newish at the time of recording this video. I can see that a lot of people are going to love this piece. It's very sugary. It's very sort of Disney-esque or that kind of thing. I think in the notes it says it's sort of more in the line of computer game music or anime or something like that. There's not really an awful lot to say about this piece because it's just really not that sophisticated. I think it gets its effects from sort of fairly cheap ways of getting them, but that's just my personal taste on it. There is emotion in here, and really what I'm going to talk about in this video, I think that it's a good opportunity to talk about tension and release, and to talk about the importance of bringing out what's important. Now, before I go into this, there is a performance that I've put up on YouTube. There's a link above and there's a link below in the description. It's been weeks since I've played it, so it's completely out of my muscle memory. It's almost as if I'm sight reading it. It's got some tricky little bits in it, so forgive me if my playing is a little bit rusty on this at the moment. So to begin with, I think that a lot of people, I can imagine a lot of my students who learn this, might neglect the beginning, even though the beginning is the thing you play over and over. I think the beginning is one of the trickiest bits of it. And, once you get the tune, we've got da, da, dum, dum, da, da, dum, da, and so on and so on. But this, da, da, dum, da, dum, da, da, dum, da, dum. It's kind of throwaway, and to make this throwaway means you can't be you have to play it as if it's not important, and to play as if it's not important, it's got to be effortless and easy. So ideally, let me just make sure this is under my fingers. So ideally it just needs to be, it needs a little bit more practice. And this is like it's tumbling, it's falling. They're like leaves falling to the ground. This So basically, I'm not going to say a massive amount about it, but you've got to make this just effortless. So I know it says moderato, and I know that ultimately you want it fairly like da 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 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, that kind of speed. But here 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, and so on and so on. Now you don't have to do that, but that's the way that I like to play it. At the beginning it says P dolce, so it's very sweet. I think if we play it slower, it's very hard to make that sound dolce. It's very hard to make it sound sweet. It's like even if I play it very gently and with a sweet tone, it's just. It doesn't want to feel leaden. It doesn't want to feel bum bum, and then the next bit. So hopefully you kind of see what I mean, that it's too heavy and it needs to be really light, really. And the way to make it light, in my opinion, it's like it's like the wind picks up and blows. And for it to be light, it gets carried quickly, it gets carried fast. Something that's heavy is going to be carried slower. And here we can slow down a bit. So yeah, it's like just stuff being swept by the wind. It's fast. Doesn't say that, you don't have to do that, but hopefully you agree that this fast, with lots of rubato, by the way. So I'm like 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's a bit too much, but that kind of thing. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, kind of thing. So, do you prefer that, or do you want one? Well, I won't count out loud. I mean, that just doesn't work to me. So anyway, that's my point number one. Now, really, other than that, oh yeah, and I changed the ending. There's some things I'm going to say about the ending, but that's going to be later on. So really, I very much suggest, I have a podcast. A lot of you may not know that I have a podcast. On the podcast, I talk about more psychological things and more general things, and YouTube is more for sort of the practical exam pieces, technique, that kind of thing. So there is an episode on my podcast where I talk about tension and release and explain it a bit. This really needs way more podcast episodes and way more videos. So do subscribe and click the bell icon, if you want to be notified when things like this come up. I will be doing them. But basically, listen to my podcast episode about this. But tension and release is that basically when there is musical tension, we tend intuitively to want to slow down and get louder. So if you, I'll come to this in a minute. So musical tension, slow down, get louder, and the release of that tension, we normally speed up and get quieter. So what are the things that cause musical tension? Harmony causes musical tension, and in particular, the dominant causes musical tension. So if we think about, let's play something like Happy Birthday. So Happy Birthday in C, Happy Birthday. This is in C. We have the dominant, the tonic, subdominant, tonic, second inversion. And then here is the dominant just before the final resolution, G dominant 7. And everyone knows that you just don't stop there. So let me do that again. That's musical tension. And that musical tension is there because there is a strong expectation. Being on the G dominant 7 sets a strong expectation that the dominant 7th wants to resolve down the 5th to the tonic. And by the way, happy birthday, but actually it's your birthday, or soon to be your birthday. So hopefully you can hear that is tension. And notice that when I get to that, I slow down and get louder. Now, if I do the opposite, that just sounds completely natural, right? If I do the opposite and speed up and get quieter, you'll hear that it's just wrong. Can you hear that's just totally wrong? Now, if I just play it bang in time, 1, 2, 3. It's just a bit flat. It's a bit flat. So, well, actually, and then when you release the tension, a release of tension is normally quieter and quicker. Here, let's make the final note quieter. So we've got louder. It's a bit much, but that's like the release of the tension. Anyway, so harmony is a very, very strong reason to have musical tension. Another thing that can cause musical tension is using non-chord tones. Now, let's say if we've got a chord of C major, the non-chord tones are basically the notes that are not 1, 3, and 5. So the 2, which is D, the 4, which is F, the 6, which is A, the 7, which is B. Basically, if I want to make a melody, and we're in C major, none of them really have any tension. any musical tension because they are all chord tones. 5, I'm talking about scale degrees here. The 5th, 3, 1, but if I go 4, and one way to test is there musical tension is if I just stop abruptly. Like, for example, we did before on Happy Birthday. And if you stop there and ask yourself, is that the end? The answer is clearly no, that is not the end. And you don't need to be musical. You don't need to understand music theory. You don't need to be educated in music to know that is not the end, because there is musical tension. So it's kind of a similar thing that if I'm making a melody, is that the end? Of course that's not the end, because I played the 4, which is F, is a non-chord tone. It needs to resolve. So if I go, could that be the end? Kind of. There's certainly less tension of it. So anytime you've got a non-chord tone, and then you resolve it, it's like you go louder, quieter, because it's a leaning in, release. It's tension, release. So the reason why this is kind of important is that these non-chord tones resolving to chord tones are just all the way through A New Adventure. And also there is so much tension, that's so much emotion caused by the musical tension of being on the dominant, and the combination of the dominant and the non-chord tones. And also unexpected harmonies. So if we're in C major, the subdominant F doesn't have a huge amount of tension. It's got some tension because basically the tension is caused by wanting to return to the tonic, wanting to return home. Now if I went suddenly to, that's a completely unexpected chord that's not in the key signature, and therefore it has musical tension. And normally we will emphasize that by getting louder and getting slower. And getting slower can mean just we pause just before it. We bring attention to it by manipulating the time around it. So if we look at the very first bar of A New Adventure, we've got, now here, the note at the top in this chord in the second half of the bar, it's a B flat minor, and hopefully you can hear that the note at the top, it's got tension on it because it's a non-chord tone that wants to resolve to the B flat. So if we played this and then stopped, it's like, could that be the end? It's like, well, yeah, kind of, but with the addition of that note, it's like, oh, that is an ending of some kind. It could almost be a little mini ringtone or a little sort of notification on your phone or something. Now, because that happens, because you've got like a tension note that then resolves, although it doesn't exactly say this, what you want to do is like you lean into the A flat and then release on the B flat. And you could get away with 1, 2, 3. Now, it's a bit over the top. And the thing with all of these is that there's always an element of good taste to how extreme you do these things. And good taste says you don't really do them at their extremes. But you could go, so I notice that I marked beat 1 there by going, I like when, and you might have even heard me make a brief exhale or inhale or something. So like, and can you hear that? That just sounds musical. It's too much, because the more you indulge these little micro moments, you take away from the structure of the whole piece. So you're always balancing what's happening in this little moment in time versus the structure of the entire piece. And as you go beyond grade 8, this becomes more and more important, how you convey the architecture of the whole piece. And this is what a lot of people don't really seem to teach or explain, that you convey architecture by how much you pull around the tension and release in the small moments, and how you do the tension and release of the larger dramatic arcs. So anyhow, so like this is the over-the-top musical way of leaning into that non-chord tone on beat 3. Now, if I do the opposite and get quieter and faster into beat 3, And that's really hard for me to do because it goes against being musical. And I was still getting louder. Let me go quieter. Can you hear? It's just completely wrong. It's just totally wrong. Now, most people will intuitively do this to some degree, but they sometimes can't replicate it. And when they feel under pressure, like in an exam environment, or they feel judged, like we are being judged, obviously when we take an exam, someone is judging us, or in a lesson where a teacher is in a way judging us, hopefully not in a judgmental way, but we do feel that we are under some kind of pressure. This kind of stuff can disappear, which is why I think it's very useful to consciously be aware of this. And then also, once we're aware of it, we can decide how much of it we want to do. Do we want, or do we just want, which is what I would go for. It's subtle, but the thing, if you do it too much, you destroy the flow of the whole thing. But anyway, this is really, really useful to be aware of. So let's carry on. And notice da, which is difficult because most of you are going to use the fourth finger on the A flat in that first bar, and then use the little finger. The fourth finger is the weakest finger, and yet that's the one that we need to lean in on the most. So there'll be a different video at some point about the technicalities of how you play nice and firmly with the fourth finger. It's too much to go into right now. Then bar two, and by the way, you should always have, if you've got the book, the book open in front of you, or where I'm going, so that you can follow everything that I'm talking about. Then we've got Now, in classical music, the major seven, so we've got here a G flat major chord, and then we've got the major seven. Major sevens are quite dissonant. You tend not to get them that much in classical music, and this wants to resolve. You couldn't really just leave. That's not the end. That just really can't be the end. But if we go, now it's the end. And notice that it's lean release. So it's too much. It's too much. But and so if I put those together, and then we've got now this one here. If I just played this, it could just be a one-note chime on your phone. It's not very satisfying, but it doesn't have a huge amount of tension. Yeah. Oh, now there's expectation, now there's suspense, now we're expecting something. So, da, da, and I lean into that, so, da, 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 da. And that still sounds incomplete, so I'm going to lean into that one. And now we don't know where we are. So, bit of tension, bit of tension, bit of tension. Now we arrive at what we know in advance. We know with hindsight that this is the dominant. We don't actually know what key we're going to be in. If we're a listener, we've never listened to it for the first time. But we can see if we go ahead a bit that we are going to be very firmly in D flat major. So, when we arrive at the dominant, which is A flat dominant 7, which is here, we can send a signal, we can signpost to the audience that by building the tension, by getting slow, it does say go quieter, but we can still build the tension by going really slow. We're building the signal. This is an important moment of tension. This is probably the dominant. So if I go from bar 4, that sets such a strong expectation that we're going there. Whereas if I don't do that, if I just go, I'm going from bar 3, bar 4 now. that sounds really weak and pathetic, and really, it does seem obvious that we are supposed to signpost. And that's another reason why you've got those two pauses in bar 6. And then we make the audience wait. And the more we make the audience wait, the more we build the emotion in that moment. And then we arrive at the melody. And notice what happens in bar 7. That the E flat is a non-chord tone. And it's a way of getting more emotion out of it, because if I just go and then, is that the end? Well, this could be the end, but this wants to resolve, and it does. And this, it's like a little thing that pulls at the heartstrings. Basically, musical tension is emotion. So this little note here is like an emotion, and it resolves. And now here we are. We're in the home key. We're in the home key. This is very clearly home now. And then there's not really much musical tension. The musical tension comes from not being on the tonic, which is D flat major. Now we're on the dominant, so there's a D flat major. Then we're on the dominant A flat, although it's in the first inversion. So, and now we can go and slow down a little bit there, because it's a dominant, but not too much, because the dominant isn't wanting to resolve to the tonic. If it was, then that would warrant getting louder, but it goes somewhere else. It goes to the subdominant. So although it's the dominant, we're not putting too much tension on it, because we're going somewhere else here. Now notice this, notice how much tension that has. That's not the end, and that is why there is a crescendo there. The crescendo, as I've said in other videos, crescendo doesn't actually mean get louder. It actually means build tension, which usually means get louder, but the crescendo is build tension. Now, building tension can happen by getting slower as well. And in fact, I could play the crescendo without getting any louder, but only by getting slower. So if I go from bar 7, now, I'm achieving a similar thing. I didn't get any louder, but I was expressing that crescendo by slowing down. Yeah, it's better there if you do get a little bit louder as well. But anyway, I've gone into way more detail than I wanted to on all this tension and release. But that's because there's really not that much more to this piece than that. And then the other thing as well is that most of the time, the left hand is quite difficult. There's a lot of jumping about, and the right hand tends to stay in one place. And again, people who've watched my other videos and listened to some of my podcast episodes will know that that's a real problem, especially when we play things like Chopin waltzes, where the right hand doesn't move much and the left hand's all over the place, or nocturnes. And then you end up just bringing the left hand out. So anyway, when we get to, let's say from bar 6, but it's really all the way through the piece, we want this. Excuse my bad singing. Now, hopefully you can hear that is a long melody, and I think that most people who play this piece at grade 8, they're going to be oblivious that is the long melody. Oh, excuse me. That's the long melody. That's what we need to follow. So if we play like... kind of obvious that I'm not listening to the melody. That's not going to sound so good. And there is like a magic telepathy to playing music, especially on the piano, because we're playing so many different lines, that if you are listening to the part that's most important, your audience will hear it. But the temptation, when you play the rest of this bar, to most people it's as if that F in bar 7, the F in the melody, just stopped existing after we played it. That's one reason why teachers like to make their students sing. It forces you to keep listening to that note, even though you're playing other stuff. It forces you to keep listening to it, and most people won't do that. They will do something like, when they try and sing, they'll go da 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 ba 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 ba, even when they're trying to sing the top line. So this is the reason why I make, well, I don't make, but I very strongly encourage my students to sing. If they really don't want to sing, I don't make them, but I strongly encourage. So the trick is, and again, this comes down to, like anyone who listens to my podcast, and there's the key 4 psychological skills. Key psychological skill number 4 is, can you follow with your awareness the things that you want to focus on without getting pulled here, there and everywhere by technical things that are grabbing your attention? So can you just, is it possible when you play from bar 6 to just really only focus on the tune? Now, hopefully you could hear that I am absolutely focusing on the melody and following it all the way through. And that is really hard for most people, because for most people, it's like, really like, am I playing all the correct notes? Am I playing all the correct notes in the left hand? You have to practice this in such a way so that, and this is, I can't remember which of my key psychological skills this is, but it's like magic wand practice. It's like, can you just play this like someone took over your body and cast a magic spell, and you don't have to do anything? The amount of effort that I'm putting into playing that is zero. And it's not because I'm better. It's not because I'm a better pianist. It's because I practice doing that. So you need to practice how to go and then play your left hand so effortlessly and securely that you don't need to look at it, you don't need to think about it, you feel it. And I think, again, this is another weakness that most students have. They don't feel enough physically, and with a thing called interoception, the inside of your body. When I play this, I don't need to listen to it, I don't need to look at it, I don't need to think about it, because I can feel that I'm playing the right notes. I can feel it. So I don't need to listen to it or think about it. And what it's like, one analogy that I use, it's like, imagine a very young kid who's like 3, who normally gets all the love and attention that the kid needs and deserves, right? But there's a moment that's like, oh, the adult needs to take care of something really important. It's adult business that needs to be done. And the little kid's like pulling at the trouser leg, going, give me attention, give me attention. And you're like, no, hang on. And you just kind of tune it out. That's in a way what this is like. It's not quite like that, but it's like, this is the left hand is trying to get your attention, and you go, no, I'm not giving it my attention. My attention's going on the melody. And even when I'm sight reading, I do that as well, because this is just what you practice. And I think a lot of the time this isn't really sort of made very clear to a lot of learners. A lot of the time, I think this is just like, you either do this or you don't. And if you do this, then you become really good and go to music college and end up becoming professional. But not many people actually explain this. Anyhow, so this gets really important as the left hand gets trickier and trickier. So if we go... well, the whole thing really, but let's see, bar 21. Oh yes, and here, you don't want to bring all of this down. Let's go from bar 19. So, again, trying not to listen to the left hand that much. Which is challenging. dum, dum. Now here. And you'll notice, I still keep listening to this note here. It's not this. Now, and you know, that's one reason why it says MP, but this is background, and you need to, in your mind, be, this is foreground, this is background, and whatever's in the background, you don't pay that much attention to. And then here, da, 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 dum, dum. This is sort of in between the foreground and the background. So you had dum, and then here, this isn't quite the foreground, da, 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 because this, da, 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 da. Oh, excuse my da, 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 da. And I bet you that most people who think they've learnt this probably won't be able to sing that. And I can guarantee that almost everyone who learns this, they're going to play with the right hand. Not really listen to that tune that much, but it needs to be this. So the right hand's got to be really background. So and notice that the right hand was not intruding into all of those things that much. There is also another thing that I could talk about, which is pedaling, because the pedaling is unbelievably difficult here, because you kind of need to half pedal it, because you want these notes to keep going in the bass, but you kind of have to half pedal to let go of the F when you get to the E flat. So you sort of flutter the pedal to let it out a little bit, so that you let go of the F, but keeping the G flat in the bass. It's a bit too much to go into in this video, but I thought I should just mention it. So if I don't lift the pedal up here in this bar, that's too blurry. That's too blurry. So I have to flutter the pedal up, and with the pedal I'm doing this and just trying to let go of some of the previous note a little bit. There, it's subtle, and especially on the digital piano, it's really hard on the digital piano. It's much easier on a real piano. Anyway, I thought I'd just briefly bring that up. But this is really, that pedaling technique is a bit advanced for grade 8. But if you can do it, or get your teacher to help you with it, ideally that's kind of what you want to do with this. And then you've got like the section at from bar 38. All these chords are quite unexpected. So, and then this here, we're about to modulate into a new key. So F here is the dominant, which is why we get louder and slow down into it. And now here, we don't just bash all these out, because the melody is this. I'm going to go from bar 37. So we've got that's your melody. Your melody is not that's not your melody. So sorry for hammering it there. So and then this, the G. So, and then these not that loud, because it does this. And I've got to say, the way that this has been written for the piano makes this unbelievably difficult to pull off. And I found it really hard in my performance to be to hear because this, the chord is an F dominant 7, and then this G, which is the melody, is a non-chord tone, so we lean into that, and it needs to resolve to the F, which is like a tension release, although we still have the tension of the dominant. So tension, a little bit of release, and then this is like a triumphant arrival in the new key. So to try and sum that up, loud, background, foreground, tension, foreground release, and then we've arrived with the melody being at the top. This in the left hand is not important. Foreground, and then foreground in the right hand. Now the left hand here, there's a lot of jumping about. It's tricky, but this needs to just be in the background. Can you see how like I can do this? I can do this and look at you and chat, and I'm almost sight reading it. I don't really need to think about it. That's what it needs to be like. All your focus is on the right hand. Da dum, da da dum, da dum, whatever it is. Dum, da dum, dum, dum. And this is a non-chord tone. It's the 7 that really needs to resolve. Dum, dum, da dum, dum, da, da, and so on and so on. So hopefully you can see what I mean, that these are the things that you need to do to look after this piece, which is basically you make sure you are focusing on the things that are foreground. So here, dum, da, 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 dum, dum, da, dum, dum, and this is not foreground. The bass notes are. Anyway, I did a few changes when I did this because I think the ending is incredibly weak. And so when we arrived triumphantly in the new key in bar 41, I quite like taking the B flat down the octave in the left hand. It's much more, you know, we have arrived. And so on and so on. Now the ending, this tremolando C flat, I think is just unbelievably weak way of ending it, especially as we've only just arrived in this key. Normal classical music does not do this, by the way. Normal classical music does not end suddenly in a different key to the key that we started in. This is a bit more of a pop thing. So if I go from bar 45, bearing in mind we've only just arrived at this key. This is so weak. It's supposed to be like a timpani roll, but there, I just find that very weak. So at the minimum, I can't remember if I did this on my performance or not because it was weeks ago. I'm tempted to move that down the octave. Let's see. So we've got bar 46 down the octave. And what I do, it's not just start straight into tremolando. I will play it as an octave with an accent and then a tremolando, because that's much, much stronger. Again, whether or not you actually want to do this in your exam or not, I would personally have the courage to do this, even though this is not what it says to do. Can you hear how much stronger this is? Let me just play it fully up until the end of that bar. Whereas what he's written is which to me is really, really weak. And then with the final note as it's written, so as it's written, whoops, I played the wrong chord, sorry. Let me do it again. It's just very weak. Let me quickly play that whole thing just from before the new section. So I'm going from bar 39. Bearing in mind I'm really out of practice with this. New key. Whoops. That is not a satisfying ending to me. And by the way, another reason why I think this is difficult, you've got the left hand in the loudest, thickest part of the piano, and your melody is just like in the thinnest, weakest part of the piano. So you really have to be careful not to overpower that melody by doing something like because the right hand is just completely swamped, it's completely overwhelmed. So, and also you don't want to bash the right hand too much, I mean, really, the way it's been written, I suppose you can't help but bash it here, really. It's very hard to play with a very beautiful tone in this part of the piano loudly. Very, very challenging. And anyhow, so just be aware that the left hand really needs to come down quite a few notches. Now, what I did, so what I did for the ending, bar 46, down the octave, play the whole thing as an octave with an accent, then tremolando, and then what I do is something like, I think I did a second inversion B flat major chord in the left hand, which is sort of not that loud, and then, which is so much more satisfying. So it's something like, something like that. So, that was just my way of just trying to fix this weak ending a little bit. So, I'm very aware that this hasn't exactly been so much a tutorial as a sort of a taster, a superficial, shallow dive into some sort of fundamental musical concepts that apply to all pieces, but that are especially important to do well in this piece because there's just not much other substance to it. Most pretty much any other classical piece at grade 8 level would require so many things for me to talk about, but this just not that much musical depth. It doesn't mean it's a terrible piece of music. It is what it is. It has its function. If people enjoy it and love it, then that's all that matters. But compared to other classical pieces, it isn't as sophisticated as them. And again, that doesn't mean it's a terrible piece of music. But anyway, so really, I hope that I hope you enjoyed that introduction to some of these musical ideas, and I will be talking about them in more depth individually in future YouTube videos and on the podcast. And they are things that I've touched on in previous videos as well. So, if you would like to know about these things in more depth, make sure you subscribe and click the bell icon. And also, it's really appreciated if you like and support the channel. Please do leave comments, even if it's comments saying that you disagree, that's completely fine. Also, do have a look at the my podcast. You can find all this information at heartofthepiano.com. There's information in the description below. And also, I am available for online teaching. I've got availability at the moment if you would like to know more about all this kind of stuff. So anyway, enjoy this piece. I'm not saying you shouldn't enjoy this piece. Please do enjoy this piece. I think this piece is very enjoyable. I know loads of you are going to love it and enjoy it. Enjoy your practice. Go do lots of practice. Either go do lots of practice now or watch more of my YouTube videos or my podcast. And take care and see you at the next one. Bye.